This can go. Ladies and gentlemen, can I request you to kindly settle down? As usual, if you're doing anything in January and you are engaging Delhi, there is some problem. So people from Delhi have not been able to still make it because the flights have got generally rescheduled. So let me welcome all of you, and let me not, we need to finish half day. So let me invite Mr. Prashant Saran, the chief guest for this function today on the dais. Mr. Saran, please. We'll stand here. Let me invite Mrs. Meena Hemchandra, who is the keynote speaker in the inaugural session. She heads the Department of Supervision for the Reserve Bank. Let me invite the host and the CEO of Bombay Stock Exchange, Mr. Ashish Chauhan. BSE has also graciously supported this workshop. Let me invite Dr. Jenna, the director of CCGR. Is he here on the workshop? They are coming. Okay. And we'll start off, Mr. Sridharan and Satanu Sinha, President of ICSI and the Secretary of the ICSI. They are on way, but we will start off the session. This workshop is basically a desire to launch a 3-day Directors Toolkit for Women, starting sometimes in the first week of February 2015. We will be doing a series of these Directors Toolkit for Women, mainly focusing on their profile being maintained on the NISM website for listed companies to look at, and trying to work towards increasing the women participation in business leadership. Across the globe, we see that people have used 3 basic mechanisms for doing this. One is through legislation. One is through creating specific quotas. We have a typical example of Norway, where they have. So we are lucky, Mr. Sridharan and as Satanu Sinha are just joining us. Then we have countries like UK who have gone through a desired wish list and monitoring that wish list. Please. And then we have had countries like India, which have now brought it out both in the Companies Act as well as in the listed in the listed agreements. So we thought that this is the right opportunity to do this. You have seen that because there is still some debate, Mr. Prashant Saran would be able to clarify it further, that we moved the date from September of 2014 to 1st April of 2015 in looking at the representation of women directors on the listed companies, at least the 100 top listed companies. So we have a strong panel of people. Today what you are seeing on the dais is not very well, is not a representative of gender diversity. But what you're seeing in the audience is a fair representation of gender diversity. Through this workshop, we would want, over a period of time, that the dais also looks like the audience and we have a better gender diversity across. So I will not take time. I will request Mr. Sridharan to make some opening remarks, and then I will request Mr. Satanu Sinha to make some opening remarks, and then Ashish, Mr. Saran, and Mrs. Meena Hemchandran would do the keynotes. Mr. Sridharan.
Apologies for the delay. So, as usual, the traffic from the hotel, we thought that is the session is 10 o'clock, but we reached on time, but I was told that it is 9:30. Nevertheless, we are here today. Respected Sharan, the old-time member, the dignitaries on the dais and off the dais. Good morning to all of you. It's a good initiative by the ICSI, along with the NISM, to organize workshop on initiatives to promote gender balance in business leadership. It's a long dream of the ICSI. In fact, we wanted to start about, last September itself, moment the Companies Act 2013 was introduced. And few sections under the Companies Act was made into effective from 12 September. It includes the section 149 also. We thought that we should organize a program exclusively for the women, particularly the company secretaries, who are looking for aspiring to become the independent directors, women directors on the board. But we took, probably I can say that a good initiative again, the August 2014, wherein all the three institutes together created a database platform for independent directors who are aspiring to become independent directors to register themselves in the site created by all the three institutes. Probably I'm proud to say that the first time all the three institutes jointly come together and create a database for the purpose of independent directors. It is not too late now, probably. I think this is the first program of relating to the gender balance, the workshop on initiative to gender balance by the ICSI in association with the NISM. As ICSI, we thought that the company secretaries should not be called only as a governance professional or the compliance officer. As a council thought fit that no, our company secretary should think beyond the compliance level. We thought that every company secretary look for diversifying the activities to become the independent director on the board. As you all aware that our professional curriculum entire things is designed in such a way that our professional can get into any position. So we thought that we can play a very positive role as independent director, taking advantage of the provisions under the Companies Act 2013 now made it mandatory for appointment of the women directors, independent directors. And I was told that more than 30 to 35,000 independent directors to be appointed by listed companies and other companies specified under section 149. And I was also introspecting myself that the women especially can get into any position. As a woman, you can get into as an independent director, and whereas a male as independent director cannot get into the women director position. So the women has an advantage position as usual for all other activities, but here also she has advantage position to get into the board as independent director or as a women director on the board. So probably we thought that since the women is going to play a very positive role, especially in the light of the Companies Act 2013, we thought that we should try to make our women, especially the company secretaries, understand the subject in detailed analysis and try to give them confidence to face the challenges. This is the first initiative by the ICSI. I am confident that the series of the workshops similar to that will be organized across the country so that the women company secretaries, particularly aspiring to become the women director on the board or as an independent director on the board, probably this sort of a platform will give them a confidence, a comfort level to aspire to become the women director or independent director on the board. As Mr. Sandeep rightly pointed out, the DIS is not actually balanced as a women director, but it is aligned with the Companies Act 2013. It aligned with the listing agreement. It says that only one woman director on the board. I think I'm happy that at least one the dignitaries on the dais is balancing the complying the requirement of the Companies Act 2013 as well as a listing agreement. Friends, I don't want to talk. Basically, we thought that no, we should try to, even the rest of the speakers for the sessions also has been identified only the women, the speakers going to address on the rest of the sessions. As the president of the institute, I thought it is, in fact, asked me to share the dais along with the dignitaries. I am, like you, eagerly interested to hear from Madam what is it she has in store to share with us so that every women participation is here who is aspiring to become the director on the board of women director or the independent director. Please, every one of you should understand that you can get into any position under section 149 as well as a class 49. You can get into independent director or you can also get it as a women director. So you have the options available to choose. You should try to capitalize the option available to you under the Companies Act as well as a listing agreement. Please, on behalf of ICSI, on behalf of the NISM also welcome each and every one of you for this, the first initiative by the ICSI. I hope that at the end of the day, all of you will carry with the good takeaway so that which will help you to think, ponder over, to get into the position as the independent director or the women director, which I feel that every one of you should aspire that position. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Sridharan. Let me now invite for the first keynote, Mr. Ashish Chauhan, the CEO of BSE. He has brought BSE into a different cycle, and the details of his profile is available in the speaker's profile, which has been given to you as a part of the kit. So I'm not going through that. Mr. Ashish Chauhan, please.
Shri Prasant Saran, Shri Sridharan, Srimati Hemchandra, Shri Sandeep Ghosh, Shri Sutanu Sinha. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure and honor to be in front of you. It's a very important topic, but before that, I would like to wish a warm future ahead for my dear friend, Mr. Sridharan, who is going to retire soon as the president of ICSI from 18th of this month. So, sir, it has been an honor to be participating with you on many such forums, and we are really proud to have associated with ICSI during your tenure. Thank you very much, sir. In fact, I was in Delhi yesterday night, and I was told Mr. Lekhi will not be able to come. And I was told by many people saying, why are you going? And I said, no, two things. One is, this is a very important topic for BSE. And second is Mr. Sridharan's last public event. And for both, I have to be there. So I came down, and I thought, I have to go back again to Delhi just now after this event. But I thought it was very important for us to be showing our respect to the cause and also to Mr. Sridharan. So I welcome all of you to this International Convention Hall of BSE, which has played host to many important events in the history of capital markets, as well as India's economic growth. BSE is Asia's first stock exchange, established in 1875 as a native share and stockbroker association. First as a trading ring for the brokers, and then as a convention hall post-digitization. This hall has been synonymous with the history and growth of capital markets in India. India has always been known to the global community for its rich culture and heritage. Being touted as a country with the youngest population in the world, India is on the verge of an economic overhaul, as the new government emphasizes on its market-driven policies to attract more international companies to invest in the country. While we are getting ready at an economic level, we have to work on the social level to take our country towards greater development. We have several inequalities. One of the larger ones is gender inequality, but we do have religious inequality, we do have caste inequality, we have many, many such inequalities. And as much we can do for such causes, it's important that India also churns itself from within and brings people from behind onto the forefront. It's a fact that capital is not the only important variable in global economy. Our business or an economy's competitive advantage is becoming increasingly determined by ideas and innovations rather than their tangible assets. Getting more people involved from different stratas, different genders, and also from different religions, different castes is very important from India's perspective. We are rapidly moving from capitalist to talentism. In such a state, the notion of gender discrimination or parity is a very grave issue. Women make up half of the potential human capital available in any economy, and the efficient use of this talent pool is a key driver of competitiveness and overall development of the economy. Countries such as China and USA have tapped this and are currently leading the practice of including women members on the board of the companies. The World Economic Forum has also created task force in the countries like Mexico, Turkey, etc., whose goal is to reduce the parity by at least 10% through concrete measures. India is somewhere in the middle of the countries. I think Japan has 4% women on the board. India is around 9% on the top company boards, and Australia has probably 18%. So effectively, we are somewhere in the middle, but we have a long way to go. And India has had a long tradition from Vidushi Gargi and all our ancient times that we have always had great women leaders. Now we have, of course, leaders in form of many dignified and talented leaders like Srimati Arundhati Bhattacharya, my colleague, ex-colleague and now CEO of National Stock Exchange, Ms. Chitra Ramkrishnan, Srimati Chanda Kochar, Ms. Kiran Majumdar Shaw, Zia Modi, Shikha Sharma, Kalpana Murparia, many, Kaku Nakate, many of these women leaders are examples of how Indian business is able to nurture the talent, but how do we take it forward and make it much more? We must draw examples from all these women leaders and their style of management, replicating them in other companies. It's a pleasure to be a part of this seminar, and it allows us to introspect and deliberate on the issues important to the growth and development of our nation. While we continue to discuss the challenges and opportunities for working women, we need to find credible solutions for the issues that women encounter in their journey towards lasting successful career graph. I applaud ICSI and NISM for this initiative and wish them all the best for their future endeavors. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chauhan. Let me now request Mrs. Meena Hemchandra to do the keynote. Mrs. Meena Hemchandra is the Principal Chief General Manager of the Department of Supervision, which oversees the working and functioning of all the banking sector within the country and directly overseas. It's a very tedious job, I would say, and she holds the current charge of Department of Supervision. Mrs. Meena Hemchandra.
Respected Sharanji, other dignitaries on the dais, and my dear lady delegates here and the other men in the room, a very warm welcome, and happy Sankranti, happy New Year, and let's all begin with a cheer to the cause, and hope that by the end of the year, we will see some good initiatives being achieved. I'm really grateful for the organizers for giving me an opportunity to be present here to express my views on what needs to be done to have gender balance in business leadership. It's quite interesting that we still, even after so many years of independence and modern thinking, we still need these seminars. We still need a policy thrust to push women forward. Perhaps the fault, since the ladies are in a larger number, Sandeep, by the visual thing, I can see they are a larger number. I think I'll take this opportunity to just share with ladies that perhaps some fault lies with us. We don't push ourselves forward. And I can see the men in the room, they're nodding their heads very seriously, saying, yeah, we are not at fault. It's the ladies who don't come forward, we give the opportunities. Perhaps the truth lies in between. It's not neither here nor there. I think both are equally have to be reckoned if we really have to give a very good role to women in business. It is not just, we will be able to achieve through gender balance only when we see that these kind of seminars are on their decline. Only when we see that the presence of a lady on a platform or in the board does not evoke a remark. It did evoke a remark in this house also. But that the day when such remarks do not really come up, that is, they are more visible, that it is only then, that is an indicator, an intuitive indicator that things are changing. And it's not till then. Even today, what Sandeep perhaps did not mention, and with your permission, Sandeep, I would like to mention, I have served as almost 6 to 8 years on boards of different financial institutions. And I exactly know what it means to be a lady director and how difficult it is to get there. In my case, it was even more, it was a little more easier, but in case of, because I represented the institution, but in your case, professionals, you will have to put that little bit of extra efforts, and that is my request to all of you here today. Let us not wait for things to happen to us, but let us make it happen. Now, one other thing I would like to say is why is the sudden realization that they need women on boards or in leadership? What is it that they suddenly realized that they need women for? Of course, there are various studies that have indicated that the presence of women on various in various leadership positions or on boards of organizations do lead to productivity, increase in productivity and revenues of a corporate entity. That may be so, but if we sit back and just realize what are the qualities that a lady has that recommends her to the position, I would certainly like a lady to be wanted for her professionalism and for her ability to contribute, and not just because there is a quota now in terms of the Companies Act that need to be filled up. I don't want to be there for that, and I'm sure none of you want to be there for that. So the main things that we should be aware of what is our strong points and what is it that we really bring to the board. See, the greatest trait in a gender, if you talk of gender differences, the greatest trait which we bring forth is empathy. We are able to empathize. We may have a certain objective, we may be driving a certain agenda, but as lady, I can only speak for a lady, since I'm a lady, and I request the men not to think that they do not have these qualities, but it is generally known that the woman is the most softer of the two genders, able to sort of communicate and understand the other's feelings. Basically, this comes from her role as a mother or a wife in the family, her role in the family. She's a homemaker, essentially a homemaker, and I'm sure most of you would sometimes see women leaders when they are in operation. If you watch women leaders in operation, you will see them extending the principles on which they run their families even to the office atmosphere, environment, which includes patience, counseling, encouragement, and a lot of sometimes withdrawing. If you want consensus building, you sometimes have to withdraw. You have to take one step back to take 2 steps forward. If you don't bend, you break. These are the qualities that run a home, and these are the qualities that also make for the successful team building and success in the organization. And another thing, a lady is usually a very good listener. She'll be able to listen to others. All these qualities, again, go into her being a very good empathizer. This is one quality that ladies have that recommends her to positions of leadership and the board. The other thing which recommends her to such positions is her ability to multitask. Again, drawing analogy, she'll be able to keep the milk on the stove, answer the doorbell, fetch things for her kids who are shouting their heads off for their ties and shoes or whatever, or if they're grown up for their mobiles or whatever. The confusion that prevails in the house at 9 o'clock, all of us know. This ability to multitask gets extended to the office. In most of the jobs, you will need different kinds of, you will need to handle a variety of situations at the same time, and this is where these skills, which are so innate to her, have a distinct advantage. The third thing which I have mentioned it before, but I would perhaps say with a little bit of circumspection, is women are a little less aggressive, and boards of banks are known to rely on a lady for sometimes holding the peace. When there are two distinct views coming very aggressively, many times I've seen a lady playing the role of a peacemaker, being less aggressive, sometimes giving up and all. These thoughts I've expressed earlier. And I just mentioned a few of them. I don't really intend being very analytical. The short point I was making at this juncture is women have to be educated about their own strong points, the USP, as we say, which commends them to position of leadership and board directorships, which perhaps sometimes most women don't realize in their hectic humdrum of daily existence. When I mention these special qualities, I would now mention it is very necessary to be professionally competent. Please do not forget, I began by saying I don't want to be there because I'm a lady, I want to be there because I'm professionally more competent. And whatever that needs to be done to make a lady more professionally competent needs to be done by the organization or policy authorities. How much time? I have 5 minutes. So again, let's start by saying some ideas of what we can really do to get more ladies into the boardrooms and position of leadership. One is start early. Whether you're entering as a professional or independent professional or you're working in an organization, see that enough women are trained, the organizations train enough women in professional, for shouldering professional responsibilities. This would mean giving them enough leave, enough time off for their training, to acquire this training. Maybe a slight bias may be welcome to see that more women are sent for training and professional development. The other kinds of enabling environment is work-related. These have been discussed very frequently in different forums. See, the short point I was making is if you want to reach a position of leadership, women need to have some enabling environment. It's only when you reach a position of leadership can you really prove yourself. But to get there, in the early years, you need various facilities to take care of the maternal role she plays in society. I would request authorities and organizational leaders not to forget that the maternal role that is being played by the lady in the family is very important for the social peace and social fabric. It is only when a child grows up in a very loving and comfortable home does he grow up as a very responsible citizen. They have a role to play. The kind of unrest and violence that we see around us could perhaps be also taken care of if we could pay more. One of the thoughts I had on the subject is could be taken care of if the maternal role is strengthened. Now, organizationally, yes, provide a creche, provide flexible leave. I have known organizations which if they want a lady, if they see some spark in a lady, they go to the extent of allowing her to work from home, flexi timings, and in fact, I have not raised the issue of locational problems. If you have a husband who has a career path that doesn't really converge with yours, you may have to stay away. Or if that is not possible and choices have to be made, 99% of the time it is a lady who compromises on your career path rather than the husband path. Maybe these are personal choices. I don't know what is right or what is wrong. I'm not entering into that debate. But the thing is, if that is the choice made by a working couple, perhaps the organization should stand ready to facilitate. It is not that you're not able to work. You make your choice. These are sentences which I've heard as I've grown up for the last 30 years. I'm not referring just to my organization. I also have a family where a lot of my cousins and all we have ladies working, and we have had these kind of remarks passed. You please make a choice between your career or your family. This kind of choices are always posed to a lady, but not vice versa. So this kind of choices should become redundant if we really want women to come. Again, I would really like, we have two professional institutions represented here. I'm not really aware if you have a separate wing for women on your, somewhere in your setup. Perhaps, I'm not sure, this is something you could examine, not because you're not taking care of the women's interests, I'm not saying that from that angle, but it gives visibility. The entire thrust of my keynote address today is please give visibility, because I think a lot of women do not really know what role they can play. So if you have a women's wing, there are a lot of organizations which has a women's wing. Why our political parties also have women's wing and things like that. So some kind of exclusive women's forum within your organizational umbrella, which can cater specifically to promote interests of women directors and women professionals without it getting diffused. Then of course, the other thing is there is an urgent need for such seminars. I'm very glad the sponsors of the seminar have really taken this on, and I wish they hold many more seminars of this. But I would, for these seminars to be effective, I would really be happy if they get the initiatives that get thrown up here today, get translated into policy action. And I'm sure you will be conveying the proceeds of these seminars to the concerned person who are in positions of authority to do something. But normally I have seen when a suggestion lands on the table of a person who's in a position of authority, they really ask a question, is it one view or is it a representative view and all? So perhaps we could have more surveys on the cause of women directors and women professionals to know what exactly is holding them back instead of having a very intuitive approach. These seminars, if they culminate in certain surveys, will be certainly welcome. I think I have taken my time here today to just share my thoughts. The last thing I would like to mention, I began a little aggressively by saying that women are necessary, but I would really like to say that I would like to have the balance. The balance is there in the topic today, And it is really, the point is we need the balance. On the lighter vein, what would happen if there were only women on the boards with only a man sitting there? I'm not sure. I'm sure people will say that there'll be cat fights. I'm not sure whether that will really happen. But anyway, the balance is required because you need certain aggressiveness which the other gender brings. And with that, I would really welcome all of you to please move forward. And in the days to come, let us just not clap for lady iconic figures, but let us talk of good statistics where women are equally represented. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hemchandra. I think that covered a lot of area. But what she concluded with, I think, is very, very important, that you would always have superstars or the first in some space or other, first women this, first women that, or the superstars which Ashish had mentioned about within the women CEOs. They would always be there. I think the gap which we find today actively is between the middle management and the superstars, where there is a huge gap. What we need to ensure that when nomination committees are looking at profile, we have a reasonable number of people from senior management across sectors vying for these women directors positions. But today the challenge is not of having superstars and the first in different areas. The challenge is how do we push people from the middle management to the senior management and ensure that when selection processes for the women directors are on, we have a sizable number of people, or when the selection process for directors are on, we have sizable people who are coming from the preferred gender. Now let me invite Mr. Prashant Saran to do his keynote address. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Prashant Saran.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and my colleagues on the dais, Sutanu, Ashish, Mr. Sridharan, Sandeep, and above all, Meena. And let me welcome Meena especially, and let me share that we are batchmates and colleagues. So this hall now almost looks like home to me. I think every fortnight I am here. So thank you very much, Ashish, for calling me. Thank you, Sandeep. I would, divide my address into 4 parts. The first part, normal risk-averse regulator, that is disclaimers. So what are my disclaimers? So, this topic is a very important topic, so I would like to make certain disclaimers. One, that I come from a family where my mother was a professional and my sisters were professionals, so I perfectly realize the importance and how the women have to cope with all the difficulties, and they do succeed. The second disclaimer is on my professional front, that in my Reserve Bank last years, I worked under succession of women bosses, one after another, all of them excellent, and 3 of them happened to be deputy governors. So I know the capability, the high quality of women at the highest positions. So, and the last thing I will say that I perfectly realized when Meena said that what does it mean to be a lone woman on the board, because I have seen lone women on the board quite a lot. One of the simplest things which the woman director, faces is air conditioning. What happens that all men wear suits, and the air conditioning is normally set at 19, 18. and the women normally wear saris and they are shivering and they keep on getting their pallu, time and again. And so I used to, when I used to be their juniors, I used to go out and shout at people that, turn the AC up and so on and so forth. But this is one small thing, that what does a lone woman on the board means. If 50-50 division was there, perhaps the AC will be at 21, 22, not at 18. So these are the disclaimers, and disclaimers over. So the remaining part of my address, I am asking 3 questions and answering them. The first question I am asking is, why to have gender diversity on the boards or in business in general? Everybody has got its own predilections and eccentricities. I have got mine. So mine is that I start from the earliest reference point possible, and in most of the time it is prehistory. So let me see that, there is some kind of a general feeling, it's the men who have made this word what it is. You talk of Leonardo da Vinci, you talk of Michelangelo, you call this and call that, and Einstein and everybody is, man there, leaving aside one Madame Marie Curie. But if we go back a little, before the social norms set in, are we very sure that the 2 most important things in human history, that is, in discovery of fire and invention of a wheel, who did it? Whether it was a man, whether it was a woman. We really don't know. I can only guess that at least 50% of that, at least one of the discoveries or the invention would have been made by a woman. Now, at least I think the fire must have been discovered by a woman. So, why I am getting back to such a point of history, that there is no inherent thing, there is no inherent disability which would make a woman incapable of doing whatever a man can do. But let us see the record of men in the last century or so. In the last century or so, men have not really covered themselves with glory. They have really messed up the things too badly. What they did in the last century was to fight 2 disastrous wars. Then they created a Cold War which brought the world to the brink of extinction. And then finally, what they did was to create a global financial crisis which almost brought the entire thing to a halt. So this is what Meena was saying, that we have got to have women on the boards or in the positions of power to bring some kind of a moderation. I don't know how many of you have seen or worked in a dealing room. The dealing room is so aggressive. It is so aggressive. Everybody wants to have super profits. Nobody wants to have a normal business. All dealers want to have super profit. Why? Because the dealing rooms are generally dominated by men the world over. I have known certain dealing rooms which are all women dealing rooms. And the atmosphere looks totally different. It is balanced, it is reasoned. Every deal is a reasoned deal. It is not driven by adrenaline. So this is what Meena was saying, that presence of women in positions of power moderates the things, it brings the things into perspective. There are studies and there are boards which have women in good quantities, good numbers. So there we find that generally the performance of the companies which are having fair representation of women is really much, much better than those companies which are totally dominated in boards by men. So that is what we have got to have gender diversity. The second question, that what we should do to achieve it. So one of the things which have been done the world over, not only India, India has made a small beginning in most of the Scandinavian countries and in France also. So there is something like 30 to 40% reservation on the boards of listed companies, that women would be there at least 30%. So we are also making a small beginning by having at least one woman director on the board. There is a criticism many a time that all this is just symbolic. What you have got just a lone woman on the board, and what does it matter? It doesn't really change anything. I do think it changes. Why does it change? Because that is a very minimum. That is first thing, that nobody says that you can have only one member on the board. It says that at least one member on the board. If you start at the top of the pecking order, then you cannot create that situation until you create a larger base. To have at least one woman on the board, you must have lot of women who are in slightly lower positions forming a pyramid. So therefore, it would be necessary to have a larger base. When we were framing this policy in clause 49 on women director, there was a heated debate that whether we should have only an independent woman member. It should be an independent director, or it can be any director. So it was a difficult decision because somehow independent directors are the preferred option. But we argued from another point of view. Is this, that if we say only independent women director, so then the executive directors, the whole-time directors, they are left out. So what we must address is the aspiration of women who are in the organization and who should have at least some opportunity, that if the company should feel some obligation that, okay, I want to have a woman director on the board and I have got a good woman executive director, why not to have her on the board? So that is why we said that let us have it any woman director, not necessarily an independent director. Now, what stops us from having a broad base? If you look at the recruitment pattern in the organizations, then you find that at the recruitment time, there is a well-diversified batch is there. Generally, I have seen at least 30 to 40% of the fresh batches comprise of girls. Now, what happens over a career period of 30 years? In 30 years, what is the attrition rate of women and what is the attrition rate of men? My general impression is this, that the attrition rate of women is much higher than that of men. Why does it happen so? That it is really an uphill battle. Sheryl Sandberg notwithstanding, she says that lean in, fight it out, get into it, fine. But there are issues there, that there are problems. There are issues that all over the world, it's not limited to India, that taking care of the young children is one of the most difficult times, and that cannot be wished away by just giving more training or more motivation and more. So much more solid things need to be done all over in India, also in the world over also, to meet the real problems of the working women. The last thing which I will address is what not to do. On what not to do, I think the best way of sabotaging any agenda is to dilute it. You bring in lot of other things into picture. So when we are talking of gender diversity, then we can always divert the debate that no, this is the creamy layer which is coming, this is the educated and versus uneducated, and so on. So we can bring in lot of other issues into the debate. But when you bring in other issues into the debate, the main issue gets diluted. So therefore, when we are talking of gender diversity in the governing structures, then let us not bring other issues into the discussion and the debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Saran, for your pithy keynote, which is always, somehow he's a student of physics, but I feel that there is a reasonable amount of impression he gives that he's a student of history. Most of his debate and discussions takes us back quite long. And I thought since he's going back to prehistory, he would talk about Gargi, Lopamudra, and who used to get into a very serious debate, as Ashish was making a mention. We will use this occasion to launch three small events. One is the Director's Handbook, an internal audit book which has been prepared by the Institute of Company Secretaries. And I would request Mr. Sridharan to request Mr. Prashant Saran to launch it on this occasion. The other one is on internal audit, and would again request Mr. Saran to please launch that.
No, I request Savitri Parekh, the author for this, will also come the dais, please. Please come, Savitri. I think she has contributed a lot for this book. I thought we should honor her just. Please come. You along with us, Saran, please.
I must say that Mrs. Parekh is a regular feature in most of our workshops. We've been doing a number of workshops on the revised clause 49 and the proposed clause 36, and she's always there.
Ragini, I think local leader, please come.
We'll also use this occasion to launch the 3-day workshop, which starts from 5th February. The venue is Indian Merchant Chambers, and this is the first of the series of workshops which we'll do throughout the country. This is a director's toolkit for women, known as the Corporate Governance and Board Leadership for Women Directors. So the desire is not only to have an inaugural workshop, but also to create a path for taking the women directors onto the boards of companies and other organizations. Some small aspects of logistics before I request Mr. Satanu Sinha to do the concluding part of this inaugural session. One is that we will not break after the inaugural session. Both the panels would be back to back, and so that we are able to finish by lunch. We'll take a brief moment for the distribution of mementos before we request Mr. Satanu Sinha to give his concluding remarks on the inaugural session. Pratima? Pratima, can we have the mementos distribution? So can I request Mr. Chauhan to give a small piece of our appreciation. These mementos are from BSE, and we also have. Okay. Okay. Now I'll request. You want to say something?
Just one. Thank you, Ashish, for your good gesture. Thank you for staying back for the inaugural session. Friends, you are aware that this year, in association with the Bombay Stock Exchange, we have organized various very big seminars and workshops. In fact, I should thank Ashish for, in fact, providing the hall, not only providing the hall and just coming forward, and all entire expenditure is borne by him, whatever the programs organized this hall. I think it deserves a good round of applause from all our members here. Thank you very much, Ashish. I think we have strengthened the relationship. I'm definitely confident that the future leader is going to take over from 19th onwards, take this relationship further strengthened so that ultimately our stakeholders, the students and members will derive the benefit of having the association of the Bombay Stock Exchange. Thank you very much. I'd also like to inform you that this year we came out with a series of publications, almost about 38 publications so far released for the last 1 year. I think some more publications also will be released on day after tomorrow at Delhi. I think this women director also, we wanted to release it today, but fortunately this the entire text is not ready. Then just now the reading material has been provided to you. Probably the further input will be added and which will be released formally on day after tomorrow at Delhi. Thank you.
Sutanu, can I request you? There is another coincidence. Both Mrs. Meena Hemchandra and Sutanu Sinha actually were colleagues on the board of Canara Bank.
Respected Mr. Prashant Saran, CS R. Sridharan, Mrs. Meena Hemchandra, my friend Mr. Ashish Chauhan, Mr. Sandeep Ghosh, Mr. Atul Mehta, Central Council member present here, Mrs. Ragini Choksi, WRO chairman of ICSI, distinguished guest, ladies and gentlemen. It's a wonderful event. First time where ladies are more in number in the hall than gentlemen. As such, when I was hearing Mr. Sharan, Mr. Ashish Chauhan or Sandeep ji, I was thinking that why 50-50 has been diversed into 90-10 or 99-1. At the beginning of the world, it is Adam and Eve, it is 50-50. Then rightly Mr. Saran said that fire was invented. So far as research are conducted, especially by the Cambridge University, fire was invented by women, not men. And you know that hunting was a man job, but agriculture was woman job. First cultivation was made by women in 125,000 years back. And this is the beginning of the civilization, human civilization. Over the years, we worked without any electricity, and up to 18th century onwards, before that, up to that, only fire was the energy source. And we are depending on, say, natural energy, natural battery like wood and other things. But after invention of electricity and also invention of automobiles due to invention of this petroleum products, etc., world has become changed. Two things happens simultaneously. The new word in the world come into stay forever, that is called pollution. And also another word came into the world that is called corruption. And very interestingly, these two things was a blessing of our erstwhile British ruler in this country. First corruption was made generally by the Britishers in the system, and we are continuing. Why I am saying so, that if we want to correct all these things, there should be a strong force that can correct this. And I sincerely believe that is the women force. I know the first human being I know in the world is my mother. So I learned from her how to survive, how to exist, how to live life. This is true for everywhere, every aspect. We forget this thing. When we were in school, most of the teachers were women. Principal was woman. So it is not true that we are not acquainted or we are not familiar to work in an environment where ladies are more in number. But the moment we enter the business world or in life, we find that women are not there. 50% of the human resource are not properly utilized in this country, not in this country, throughout the world. So, whether there is a need for law to correct it or not is a question, but in reality, we need to change it. The debate was going on when we were working on companies law, or rather companies bill. The Institute of Company Secretaries was played a very important role. And we very seriously and strongly advocated that there should be a provision in the law so that the board has at least some persons who can balance the board functions. In India, even in world also, throughout the world, there is no provision that makes the board balanced. But now it is the first developing countries in the world that is, there is a provision for women representation on the board. Good or bad, effective or ineffective, it is law today. We need to abide by. But then the question comes whether it would disturb our board function or not, or whether it would add value to the system or not. I sincerely believe that definitely it would add value. What Mr. Ghosh said, that I had experience to work with Mrs. Meena Hemchandra for 3 years in Canara Bank board, and I found that every time she made tremendous value addition to the system. System means the board process. And she used to carry a respect which other men used to build up, but as woman, she used to carry naturally respect from all her men colleagues in the board. So this is the advantage women to have in the boardroom system. Secondly, the board process would be very balanced if there is a lady in the system. Because, board is also a group of persons. They are human beings. Sometimes they can go beyond the level. So if there are ladies, so board is always balanced. That is the second thing. If board is balanced, the board effectiveness would definitely increase. Third point is that on an average, what we have observed, that I referred about the corruption, women are generally not that much condemned as men folk are condemned so far as corruption and other things are concerned. If there are some persons on the boards of corporates also, they would maintain that level of what you call sanctity or ethical practices. It is very important for India to have. I really appreciate Mr. Ashish Chauhan. He referred to about Gargi, Maitri and others. We have persons like Gargi, Maitri and others today also. They are very much dominating in educational sector, scientific sector and other sectors. The question is why not in corporate India? So definitely they can contribute, women can contribute in similar way as men can contribute. There may be say that men from Mars, women from Venus and other books, but I don't believe in all these things. And it is true that everybody can contribute, but whenever corporate actions are concerned, it is not a man is taking decision or woman is taking decision. It is a decision of the corporate. And it can be a very balanced decision if the board is properly constituted with gender diversity and other form. But one thing I really appreciate Meena Hemchandra's point that she said it is not by quota system. It is the professionalism, it is the knowledge, it is the caliber of a person, it matters. Definitely, one has to build up that capacity one by one. And there are so many ladies participating in this conference today. I request you that one thing in life that would bring success is the knowledge. It is, there is no differentiation between man and woman so far as corporate activities are concerned or business activities are concerned. It is your knowledge, it is your efficiency, it is your professionalism that matters. So thank you, Mrs. Meena Hemchandraji, for coming here. I just requested her to come because we found that her to be very appropriate to be here today. Prashant Saran Saab, thank you very much. Mr. Ashish Chauhan, I always say that he is very much positive and very dynamic and forward-looking person. I wish, by the way, BSE all the best for their initiative. And we are jointly working for last couple of months, organizing so many seminars, forward-looking seminars, I would say. Thank you, Mr. Chauhan. I must thank my president who will be demanding office on 19th January. This was a very vibrant year for ICSI because we had a lot of troubles. At the beginning, there were some provisions in the Companies Act which was disturbing our professional activities. So he led from the front. But one thing, one day he was saying that we must do something for women directors and something for our professionals. We have a big cadre of professionals, and in the pipeline, you would be happy to hear that more than 50% of our students are girls, and they are doing very well. Most of the toppers are from the girls, and they're doing very well. So we need to train them not as company secretary, but as a future band of good directors for Indian corporates. So in this initiative, Mr. Sridharan was very bullish. Thank you, Mr. Sridharan. We try our best also in future. And I must appreciate and thanks one gentleman who is very positive, Mr. Sandip Ghosh. We have just initiated a joint program also with NISM, and NISM is a partner to ICSI in all these programs. Thank you, Ghosh, for organizing this program jointly with us. And I thank all of you, my CCGAT team, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
We would have preferred a small break, but we are already 35 minutes behind schedule. and we would like to straight away start the panel discussion. I appreciate that today is also a day when many of you have board meetings across the country. So thank you very much, members who joined us for the inaugural session. We conclude the inaugural session over here, and we start preparing for the first panel discussion. Thank you very much. Can we have the nameplates changed, please?